Hey guys, it's Matt on Movies, and today I'm counting down 10 blockbuster hits that everyone hates, but still made mountains of money. Let's see how many of these you actually remember seeing. In 2008, Roland Emmerich dropped one of those rare caveman epics that Hollywood occasionally tries and immediately regrets. Emmerich wrote, directed, and produced The Thing, building his story around a prehistoric hero who for some reason looks like he spends every day at the spa. The plot is pretty simple. He hunts down his kidnapped love interest, Evelette, who's just as inexplicably waxed. And along the way, he's fighting a bunch of CGI animals in the world's best-lit cave sets. There's a prophecy, some dramatic speeches, and enough glossy hair to make you forget this is supposed to be the Ice Age. It cost just over $100 million to make, but after DVD sales, it pulled in nearly 3 times that. That's the real punchline. Even better, the name Evelette actually started showing up as a baby name the same year. So right now, there's a kid walking around with a name from a movie Richard Roeper once said was only slightly worse than The Love Guru. That's real legacy. Godzilla 1998 version, not the classic, not the reboot, but the Taco Bell Godzilla. Roland Emmerich again taking over a beloved franchise and just doing whatever he wanted. Instead of the Stan Winston creature design, he swaps in a giant CGI iguana bulldog hybrid, ditches all the traditional practical effects, and goes all in on digital. All the camp, the history, the classic Godzilla roars are gone. The official line from producer Dean Devlin was that audiences didn't get the subtleties and that they intentionally made Godzilla more animalistic. According to them, the problem was the critics, not the movie. In Japan, Toho rejected the American creature entirely, renamed it Zilla, and made a point of having the original Godzilla show up and obliterate it in Final Wars. But despite getting trashed in the reviews, Godzilla still made $379 million worldwide. Roland Emmerich isn't done yet. In 2004, he comes back with The Day After Tomorrow, a disaster flick that takes its premise from the coming global superstorm by Art Bell. The same Art Bell from Coast to Coast AM, the late-night paranormal radio show famous for aliens, conspiracy theories, and basically anything weird. The film tries to tackle climate change, but does it by inventing tidal waves, instant ice ages, and a bunch of CGI spectacle that never gets close to reality. It's a lot of running, a lot of shouting, and a lot of weather maps. Critics called it heavy-handed, but heavy hands seem to be what Hollywood wants if there's money involved. The Day After Tomorrow made over $500 million at the box office, probably the most lucrative adaptation of a radio host's book ever. Dennis Quaid leads the cast, but even with all the money and technology, his performance just sits there. It didn't matter though. Emmerich delivered another financial hit. By 2009, Roland Emmerich is basically Hollywood's disaster guy. He comes out with 2012, a movie built around the doomsday myth from the Mayan calendar. The world ends, John Cusack drives a limo through collapsing streets, and every possible disaster trope shows up. At the time, people were genuinely stressed out about 2012 being the end. Talk shows, preachers, even news networks took it seriously, which gave the movie's marketing a bizarre kind of energy. 2012 was spectacle over substance, but that's what sold tickets. The film made $788 million worldwide, the 5th highest-grossing film of the year. Avatar took most of the headlines, but 2012's ad campaign even prompted NASA to put out statements debunking the doomsday myth, and there were reports of young people actually panicking about the apocalypse. In the end, the only thing that collapsed was common sense, but Emmerich laughed all the way to the bank. It takes real effort to stand out as the worst-reviewed movie in the Alvin and the Chipmunks franchise, but Chipwrecked pulls it off. It was directed by Mike Mitchell, the same guy behind Deuce Bigalow Male Gigolo. Starring Anna Faris, Justin Long, and the Apple commercial kid, Chipwrecked is basically Alvin and the Chipmunks go on a cruise and things go wrong. If you care about the story, you're probably already in too deep. Here's where things get really interesting. The movie cost $80 million, pulled in $342 million worldwide, so technically it's a hit. But behind the scenes, things went off the rails. David Cross, who played the villain, called it the most miserable experience of his career. On Conan, Cross went off on some crazy anti-Semitic rant and even described one of the producers as the personification of what people think about when they think negatively about Jews. That comment blew up. Cross later apologized for the remark, but the story stuck. He also described the production as soul-crushing, saying he lost his mind making the movie. Unsurprisingly, his character didn't appear in the next sequel, The Road Chip, which somehow made even more money. This franchise proves that sometimes success and quality have absolutely nothing to do with each other. Planet of the Apes looked like a sure thing on paper. Tim Burton, the man behind Batman Returns, took over a franchise known for being weird even by Hollywood standards. There were just two directions it could go: instant classic or train wreck. What we got was rough. The makeup team did their job and most of the cast turned in solid work. But Mark Wahlberg had not yet figured out how to be a movie star, and the ending made no sense at all. The whole thing came off as awkward, aimless, and boring. Still, it earned $362 million worldwide. That's about as much as the GDP of Micronesia. And honestly, it's important to remember that as bad as it was, it could have been much, much worse. In the early 1990s, Arnold Schwarzenegger nearly starred in an Apes revival with Oliver Stone writing and producing. Stone once described his idea like this: "It has the discovery of cryogenically frozen Vedic apes who hold the secret numeric codes to the Bible that foretold the end of civilizations. My concept is that there's a code inscribed in the Bible that predicts all historical events. Sometimes the best thing Hollywood does is to just say no." Back before Marvel re-engineered the universe into an endless string of crossover blockbusters, superhero movies felt a lot simpler. For a while, Spider-Man was the only game in town, and everyone in New York just sort of rolled with it. Tobey Maguire was still an A-lister, and the first two Spider-Man films set the bar for what superhero movies could do at the box office. Then came Spider-Man 3, the movie that managed to end the whole franchise with one long, awkward thud. Bland reviews, muddled storylines, and the infamous dance scene. You'd think it bombed, right? Not even close. $890 million worldwide. Sony was so happy they floated the idea of 3 more films. Sam Raimi, the director, hated the process so much he walked away and the plans collapsed. And for a short while, that was it for big screen Spider-Man. Maybe Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland would have worked better if he'd made it a decade earlier, before people caught Burton fatigue. In 2010, though, this was Disney chasing the Harry Potter audience, slapping on 3D effects and trying to turn Lewis Carroll's nonsense into a safe, family-friendly fantasy epic. What we got was a movie that took a purposely illogical world and forced it into Narnia-style blockbuster structure. Reviews were lukewarm, at best. Burton, once an actual creative visionary, turned in something that felt more like a mall Halloween store window than a film. Johnny Depp's Mad Hatter became the poster child for diminishing returns. Audiences suddenly realized he had only one trick left. But all the complaints in the world could not compete with moviegoers who just wanted to kill 2 hours and eat some popcorn. Alice in Wonderland took in over $1 billion globally. Even the sequel, which was even harder to sit through, made nearly $300 million. You can't argue with numbers, just ask Disney. People love movies about talking animals, even if they rarely walk away feeling changed. Sartre said hell is other people. He never had to sit through Garfield 2, but the principle stands. The Ice Age series, though, is on another level. Somehow, audiences have handed over $3.2 billion for 5 movies about prehistoric creatures who mostly just bicker and chase nuts. The high watermark was 2009's Ice Age: Dawn of the Dinosaurs. That film alone pulled in $886 million at a time when most of the world was just seeing Avatar for the 5th time. There's something remarkable about Ray Romano voicing a depressed woolly mammoth, and yet, here we are. Scrat, the acorn-obsessed squirrel, turned into one of the most bankable animated characters of all time. No deep lessons here, just proof that if you put enough animals on screen, someone will show up with a ticket. This one defies explanation. The Hobbit Trilogy never had the spark of the Lord of the Rings films. After the first movie, nobody was really asking for 2 more, and even Peter Jackson looked tired of it by the end. The decision to stretch a slim children's book into 3 epic-length movies left everyone wondering who thought this was a good idea. Only one of the 3 Hobbit films scored a fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes. The original trilogy is still sitting comfortably above 90% and remains the standard for fantasy blockbusters. Meanwhile, The Hobbit offered up dead-eyed digital orcs, unsettling CGI elves, and the strange sight of Orlando Bloom's de-aged neon blue eyes. The movies were too long, too messy, and too obviously made for maximum profit. But the box office tells a different story. Nearly $3 billion in worldwide grosses. That's Avengers territory. Thanks to sheer ticket sales, The Hobbit became an accidental hit and proof that fun and quality don't always decide what wins at the movies.